Well, a report has just been handed down by the federal government that might make housing more affordable. Joining me live is the chair of the Standing Committee on Tax and Revenue, Jason Falinski. Everyone wants to talk to Jason Falinski today. Everyone who can't afford to buy in Sydney and more broadly Australia. Abby Hutchinson is also with him, who is a first home buyer. Welcome to both of you. Jason, first to you. This report, number of recommendations. We always see reports making similar recommendations. What's different about this one?
Well, Laura, let's hope there is something different about this one, because what was a bad situation a few years ago has only got worse. As supply has dried up, prices have gone up, and people like Abby, who is standing next to me today, are finding it harder and harder to buy housing, not just in Sydney, but right around Australia. During the hearings into this committee, we heard from Indigenous groups in the Pilbara who were saying that they can't actually get access to housing. There's a housing shortage in the Pilbara because there's not enough land zoned by the council for them to do it. This is an issue that needs to be dealt with now by all levels of government, and that's what this report is about, setting out some of the steps that need to be taken urgently.
Well, you've buried the lead a bit there, but we'll come back to it. Abby, thanks so much for joining us on the program today. Just tell us, how hard is it for you to crack in?
It's almost impossible. My partner and I have been saving for about 3 years and still wasn't quite enough. We've had to beg and borrow from family and friends. Finally got our land secured and building a house, hopefully middle of this year, hopefully built next year. But yeah, it's been really tough. Really tough. We're a family of four. We just want to have our first family home.
Abby, have you had to go out of the area? Have you had to move right out of where you want to live because it's just not affordable?
Yeah, to some extent. Simon's family live close by, so that was something that was really, really important for us. However, it's a little bit further out than we would have liked, for schools, and I'm close to the city, close to beaches, all the things that everybody wants.
Yeah, indeed. So, Jason, let's talk about some of the more controversial aspects of this report, and I'm talking about super. Is this something that you are advocating and pushing for, using your superannuation to be a first home buyer?
Laura, it's not about using your superannuation. What it's about is allowing first home buyers and first home buyers only to be able to say that their savings for their superannuation can be used as security for their first home. We've just heard Abby say that it took her 3.5 years, her and Simon, 3.5 years to save for their first home. What we found throughout this inquiry was the biggest hurdle to getting into the housing market is the deposit. So any mechanisms that we can provide that allow people to use savings that they have made, not just as security, it still stays in your superannuation account, is, I think, a very positive one in terms of helping people. The other thing that I would say is that the report makes it clear.
How would it work, Jason? How would it work? Because
so essentially, if just for the numbers to make it easy for me, if you want to buy $1 million home, which is, let's face it, under market value in Sydney at the moment and Melbourne, which, by the way, just today have been ranked as in the top 5 least affordable housing markets in the world, Laura, in the entire world. If you want to buy $1 million house in Sydney and you've saved $100,000 and you have $100,000 in your super, then what the bank or the financial institution lending you a mortgage could do is to take into consideration that you have a $100,000 deposit, but the other $100,000 is in your superannuation and it can sit there as security. Right. Now, we know that virtually no one defaults on their mortgages, and even when they do, the underlying asset that is security more than covers the cost of the loan from the bank. So the likelihood and the objection from Labor, the Greens and Climate 200 to this is that, you would find people having their superannuation removed. The likelihood of that is so close to zero that it's approaching it from the negative side.
Abby, would that have helped you, superannuation?
I'm not sure. We did everything we could to save. We are one income family at the moment because we have 2 small children. It's just tough. We had to borrow. We had to use our wedding fund to, just to afford the deposit.
So what would have made it easier for you, Abby? Of course, the price of houses being a little bit lower, but are you finding there's a lot of are you finding there's a lot of red tape as well?
Yeah, it's hard to find land. It's hard to find affordable housing in the places that you want to live, but it's also hard to find land if you want to build your own house. There's just not much space available. And when you do, like we were in a ballot of over 300 people, and only 30 people could choose the lots. So yeah, it's tough.
Certainly a lot of competition. Jason Falinski, we all know it living in Sydney in particular, but as you say, right around the country, right up to the Pilbara. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Laura.